I think we're live. We are live.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
It's the first time we see each other in person. Since had we seen each other since the picnic?
I think so. We saw each other at a poetry event at the Poetry Lounge.
Oh, so in December.
Yes, December. We have not seen each other since December. Y'all, I want to give a very personal intro, but let me back up. Welcome to Street Poets Presents. My name is Alyesha Wise. We got the crew here in the background supporting. We're about to have a good time. This is our first Street Poets Presents event of 2022. I hope you're joining in on Facebook, our Facebook page, our YouTube page, and feel free to tell your homies that you are here with this amazing event, with this amazing person right now. So I have a very personal bio, which I'll talk about later. But let me give your professional one. And Yesika Salgado is a Los Angeles-based Salvadoran poet who writes about her family, her culture, her city, and her fat brown body. She has shared her work in venues and campuses throughout the country. Salgado is a two-time National Poetry Slam finalist and the recipient of the 2020 International Latino Book Award in Poetry. Come on. How does that feel when I say that?
It feels really good because I won it during the pandemic.
Hey!
So,
oh my God.
So now I get to hear it at events.
All right, okay. Sorry. Her work has been featured in the Los Angeles Times, New York Times, Teen Vogue, Univision, Spotify, CNN, and many more networks and publications. That's when you know, you can say many more, etc. She is internationally recognized body positive activist and the writer of the column Suelta for Remezcla. Yesika is the author of the bestsellers Corazón, Tesoro, and Hermosa, published with Not a Cult. Y'all, we probably can't hear your applause, but we can feel it. Please give it up for Yesika Salgado.
Thank you. And it's just, I'm going to give a quick, I never do this after somebody introduces me, but it's Alyesha, who has been my teammate 3 times?
Yes.
Or 4 times?
4 times. It might have been 4. I know I was a coach at once.
No, you've been on all the teams I've ever been on. Yeah, 4 times.
Wow.
I don't know what it is to slam without you, Alyesha.
Oh my gosh. Is that why we haven't been slamming anymore?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we were on. So my less traditional bio is that Yesika is someone who was just, when Yesika's on stage, it's a lot of writers, you want to stage like somebody who's doing all this flapping of the wings and everything with their poetry. But Yesika has this strong presence merely by your presence and your words. And every time I was at the Poetry Lounge in the audience, I was just like, oh, this is a writer. This is a writer who just makes you feel seen and felt. And even if the poem wasn't about me in particular, it was just like you felt at home. So thank you for you, Yessie. Thank you for your friendship, your presence, everything.
And I can say exactly the same for you too. When Alyesha, I've known y'all since you came to LA. I knew Matthew a little bit before because when he toured out here, right?
Yes.
But I think long story short, I've been doing poetry in LA for many, many years. And I had seen many other women perform, obviously. But seeing you hold this kind of power that, although I am not a Black woman, seeing you on stage gives me permission for me to stand on my power. And my first slam team experience was with you and an amazing team with Matthew, Carrie, Teresa. But it was just I remember learning a lot from you that year. We had a group piece together and all that. And
so what you're saying is we're going to cry before this interview is over?
At some point, I mean, it's me.
Just get ready, y'all. We're going to cry. We're going to cry.
How many times haven't I cried in your living room?
I've lost count. Y'all, I see some comments coming in. You can definitely comment. We can see your comments. You can comment. You can ask a question, and we may just take your question, So thank you so much for being here. This brings me right into what I was going to get to. I already know you the way I know you, and I think the way the public knows you, we know you as Yesika Salgado. We know you as Yesika Star. I know you, us on the slam team and our friendship, but we just got out this we did not get out the pandemic, but we are in this weird stage of trying to figure out life after this lockdown.
Mhm.
And this time, what we said, and we even said it in Street Poets recently, it was like we all kind of went through this interesting initiation period, like this period of like just this new life we're entering.
Yeah.
We're figuring ourselves out again. It's changed us. How has the pandemic changed you? Maybe particularly as a poet or an artist, or has it in any way?
Oh, it's definitely changed me. I think as if you know me, like as a person in my life, or I think even if you've interacted with me anywhere on the internet, I'm very extroverted. Like I don't know how not. Yesika's never at a loss for words, and Yesika's the kind of person that you invite to her house and she's the last one to leave. Like that's just who I am. But during the pandemic, I think I found like the quiet me. The I need to be alone. I need to recharge.
Yeah.
I need to figure something. Like I need to just like I give so much. I need to like step back because it's not sustainable. And before that, like the word sustainable wasn't in my language when it came to like how I operated as an artist. And then it also made me value relationships a lot more because I saw who interacts with you just out of obligation, not necessity, and like the check-ins, or it even showed me like the relationships I have with people that even though there's like a year of silence, we're still good.
Yeah.
You know, like you and I have that kind of relationship where I'll randomly text you or Matt, like, I love you. And then nothing, and then you won't hear again from me for months. But I know that that's all I need to communicate, and that's where we're at, and we're good. And I think that I needed to have all those checks and balances.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't been knocked on my butt, I would have never given myself that.
Yeah. There's power in silence. Silence can be something used against us. It could be a weapon. It can also be a great thing. Silence between people. I'm definitely the silent friend. When I love you and we get going, after a while, you can't shut me up. Everybody close to me knows after a while I'm just talking. Well, overall, I value silence, and I'm glad you got to experience that alone time. Was it good overall, the journey?
It was. I mean, I live at home with my mother and one of my sisters, and my other sister has 2 kids. And in pandemic, when it was like before vaccines, right? Because there's been levels to how we've all. But pre-vaccine, we weren't seeing anybody that wasn't the 7 of us, my brother-in-law, my sister, the kids.
Yeah.
So I really, really love family, but I really value when I get to go away and miss them. Yeah. And so the pandemic was really difficult because I don't have an office. Right. So then like I'm trying to write and there's a 5-year-old climbing me.
Oh my God.
And then we got a dog and then the dog is barking and then I have a deadline for like a project.
Right.
And so I was running away to hotels a lot. But then my bank account couldn't like
bank account said
yeah, it was cute the first 2 times.
I saw it. I was like, this is fancy. This is some real professional poetry stuff. I'm just gonna go on a staycation.
Yeah. But then I was like, but then I also want other things. I can't just spend it all on on the hotel. So it's like it's been a balance, and I'm not a nature person, but I really had to embrace nature.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just a lot of it felt like being a baby again and learning, finding your legs. And the really cool part, I will tell you the really good thing that, not that the pandemic was good, I'm not saying that people's deaths, but I utilized social media a lot for my own career. So it was really interesting to see all the folks that used to like kind of minimize my work because I share it on Instagram, kind of turn to me and be like, can you teach me? How do you do these things? Or my friends that resisted it for their own personal reasons. Like I was able, like you were never really into like all that tech stuff, but you had to figure it out for DPL.
Yep.
Right. Definitely. And so then I was able to like walk Jasmine and you through all of those things. And it just felt really good that all this knowledge I've gathered for so long, I was able to share with my community.
Definitely.
And then also like the hard-headed people, like not like you, but there were like other like the people that were just like Instagram is like whatever, like it's beneath me. Had to like figure it out, and I was able to maneuver that in a way that I had been doing already my whole life.
I'm gonna pivot real quick. I was going to say something else. You bringing up Instagram. There's, I know that. Well, I'm going to assume you value what the internet can do for a person or community. I see how the internet has definitely helped you in a lot of ways, so what's your take on this, like the use of social media, like that balance between like, I can't, especially for artists or young people, whatever, we're a youth organization and our youth are sometimes consumed in
Mhm.
social media, but at the same time, it's been such a tool. So, do you have a take, especially for those who criticize platforms quite often?
I think it's give or take, right? Like it's at the end of the day, especially when it comes to creativity and writing, you're gonna listen to what feels right to you and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't feel right for you, just because it doesn't feel right, that's fine. But if it feels wrong to you just because you've heard other people say it's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
then that's when I feel I'm like you need to figure out your own relationship with just anything.
Yeah.
And also like it's really ableist to like talk bad about things that are on the internet because I'm a large person and I'm also a disabled person, and pre 2020 I was at all the events but I was running myself ragged. Like I was exhausted all the time. I was on like I was irritable and I was like on the defense and everything would hurt more like emotionally because I was so physically exhausted.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I had to keep up with everybody else that's like more able-bodied than I am. But
Right.
then everything was on the internet. I could jump into like
Mhm.
in the first few months I was at everything
Mhm.
because I'm like I could finally be at everything and I'm not too tired
Right.
to be there. And that I'm gonna pin that. But also if you're someone who wants to share your work on the internet, like do it and just set boundaries from the beginning. Because if you what you tell how you tell people to treat you is how they will treat you. And if you don't speak up for yourself, they will take advantage. I never had boundaries for a long time. And I'd be like, it's just part of the internet. And then until at some point I was just like, nope, I'm not a therapist. I'm not I'm not this, I'm not that. And I will like talk to you about these things when I have the time for. I kind of became like the auntie that's like the fun auntie but has rules too,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
And I learned that that's something really really important. But it's if you're doing everything for the right things, it'll feel that way. And the minute that it doesn't feel right, step away from it. There's times where I'm like I feel icky. I feel like I'm comparing myself to everything I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm not doing anything in my career. I feel like XYZ. Oh, I need a day away from my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'll go stay at someone's house for a long time,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I used to do that with y'all. Like, I would come
Mhm.
over and because I'm in the moment, I don't look at my phone the entire time.
Right.
And then when I leave, I feel so full
Mm-hmm.
because I was with people I love and that love me back, no matter what my follower number is,
Yep.
and no matter whether I'm verified or not,
Yeah.
or whatever it is that's happening online. So that's always good to know that there's somewhere I could
Yes.
go and be seen.
Absolutely. Those breaks can be beautiful. So, uh, are you? Do you feel like you found your good? I feel like you're saying you found a good balance, like a
Yes.
healthy balance. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's more. I think what Yesika's saying, I could be wrong. That it's more about the personal responsibility than it is the platforms. Am I
Yes.
wrong? Is that it?
That's exactly
Okay.
it.
All right. There you go. There you go. Take notes. A
Because
lot of knowledge over here.
if the work you do in person changes once you go online, you're doing something wrong.
Hmm.
The work has to be the same all across. There's no difference. Like you on the internet should not be different than who people get when they see at an event
Absolutely.
or when they see at a show. You, the artist, could be different from you, the person,
Mm-hmm.
in some aspects, because
Right.
I feel like you can't separate the person from the artist.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you find yourself changing who you are for the sake of the internet, then maybe that's not the best place for you to host most of your work. But if you find a way to translate yourself over,
Mm-hmm.
then go till the wheels fall off.
Hmm. Let's talk about your community a bit. Let's talk about more than that. Los Angeles, brown folk, women, Chiconas, your family, El Salvador, your beautiful fat brown body, love, heartbreak. These are a lot of topics that show up in your poetry. These are your loves, things you're passionate about. Is this everything that brings you to poetry? Is there like a hierarchy? Is there like, oh, this is what really brings me to poetry? These topics, like, yeah, what brings you?
Love brings me to poetry. I think at its core, every poem is a love poem. The absence, the presence, passion is love,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we write out of love for our community, out of love for our cities.
Yes.
When we're writing pieces and we're calling out governments or people, it's out of the love of the people we're defending. You know, like it's constantly there, and I feel that that's a driving force behind my work. And my
Mhm.
biggest loves in my life our family, our my city, and and my determination to love myself in a world that tells me not to.
Oof. Come on. I'm over here doing the interview, but I just want to be in the audience. You want to take over? You want to take? I just want to be in the audience taking notes.
Let me actually pivot for a second. No, I'm gonna go to this one. I'm gonna talk more about your community. You have, so tell us about Mango.
My mango. So I don't call my followers followers. I call them mango because Shihan, who's been our coach, when he noticed that I was starting to build and my followers were going up on Instagram, he pulled like, I remember where we were. Remember when we were in Decatur and they invited us to a home for like a crab boil or something?
Oh, yes.
It was there. We were on the couch separately, and then he's just like, if you're gonna call people your followers, they're following you somewhere. Where are you leading them to? And then he was just like, so like just think of that. And that was always like rattling in my head, and I was just like, yeah, followers and fans feels weird for what we do.
Yeah.
Like those names. And there's a mango on the first cover of my book, and then folks started making jokes where like if you see a mango you think of Yesika invented mangoes, and it was just a joke that multiple people were doing on Twitter, and they started calling me Mama Mango, and then I started calling them my mango, and it just fit, and that's what I call my community. But it's not about like a fandom or anything like that. It's more of a title where we recognize each other.
Right.
Like where I could be on the event and be like, how many mangoes are here? And I don't even have to explain what it is.
They just know.
And then I see all the hands go up, and I know that those are people that know me, like know my art, like know who I am in this world, and not and I don't mean that like as in like who I like. Do you know who I am? But I mean like how I want to move in this world and what my message is.
That's lovely. You're one of the first artists I've ever seen do that, like name their fan base. You're actually one of the first artists I think I've seen like say followers. I know I heard that term, but it was brand new around the time. And then I remember you started saying mangoes, and I was like, oh my gosh, like a name. Why mango?
Well, okay, so in my first book that I wrote, Corazón, when I was putting the poems together, I was just putting the poems that I would have wanted in the book ideally, right? And when I sent them to the publisher who was going to send them to the person designing the book, she picked up that I mentioned mangoes a bunch of time, and I hadn't caught that on. Hadn't caught that. And so the specific mangoes that I mention a lot, I talk about eating mangoes a lot because who doesn't love mangoes? If you don't love mangoes, I don't know what's going on with you as a person. But my family's Salvadoran, and here in Los Angeles, my mother and my father never owned any property. Never. My father passed away. My mother's still alive, but you know, they're housekeeper and parking attendant. Like we were just working to get by, you know, and so, but back home we own our home. Like it's just common over there. You buy the land and you build a house on the land. It's not as glamorous as it sounds here. It's just like everybody has to do that.
Right.
But throughout time, my grandparents accumulated maybe 2 acres of land, and our property ends at a river that's lined by a bunch of mango trees. And so all of my memories of going home for the summer were walking down, like, and then we had to pass the field where the cows are at, and I'm scared of them because one of them kicked me.
Wait. We'll come back. Wait.
Long story short, the cow was trying to get out, and I wasn't closing the gate quick enough, and homegirl kicked me, and then I fell over and she got out, and so whatever, we beefed. And so then one time my mother and I went, and she loves the green mangoes because they're sour, and you eat them with lemon and salt, right? And so she's just like, okay, and we call them mangos tiernos, newborn mangoes. And she's like, take these. It's funny because I named my dog Mango, so I feel like I'm talking about my dog, but that's not what I'm talking about. It gets confusing. But I was coming back, the cows were following me, and I kept getting the mangoes and throwing them as far as I could so that they would walk away from me.
Oh my!
And then when I got to the other side, the bucket was empty, and my mom didn't have her mangoes.
This is the cutest story.
But for me, it's like a metaphor for like the way that I've experienced romance and love, where it's just like, if I give everything I have to someone, when I get to the other end, it's just me again.
Yeah.
And it's my job to take care of myself. And if I have to shut everything to get to the other end, then as long as I got to the other end, it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all these mangoes could mean so many things to me. My home, my mother, my family, my trauma, like the things I've survived, but the things that I also love.
Yeah.
Like the complexity of everything. And so that's what the mango represents in my writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that my readers picked up on that and then like they started calling them so sad, I think it's really sweet.
That's lovely.
They would bring me mangoes to my readings.
I saw, yeah.
And then I'd be like, what am I supposed to do with this bag? I'm gonna get it on an airplane.
Have you ever, be honest, have you ever had to leave mangoes and not bring them in because it was too many?
I usually leave them for housekeeping.
Okay.
I would like, you leave your tip,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would put like, maybe I'll bring back like a mango or something.
Yeah.
But I'll put like the rest there and leave a note. Like,
oh, that's great.
So there's a random mango ghost touring the country, leaving mangoes in hotels.
That's awesome. I'm thinking about younger you with this story. I'm thinking about young Yessie with the cow and all that.
Young Yesika was weird.
And I'm thinking of you before you put yourself out there as Yesika Salgado, when you were thinking of you as Yesika Star and the blog sites and everything. And tell us about you before the Instagram blow up, before people started catching on to your work more, when you were on the blog sites. Who were you before the poetry got to where it is now?
So I started writing in the first grade, right? I grew up in a household, in a Latina household with like an alcoholic father. My mother was undocumented when I was really young. And then like her process like started like afterwards, right? But I remember spending a lot of time in my youth like very afraid, like either for my mom's safety in many ways, right? Or from my dad's anger and all that, right? And then like dealing with like just a lot of, the world is big and scary and strange when you're young and not a lot of things are explained to you. And I wrote to make sense of those things. And the older I got, the more I realized that this world is really cruel to its daughters. And especially to the daughters that, to the daughters that don't fit in these boxes that folks want to be kept in. And as a fat woman, I already don't fit in a box. As a high school dropout, I don't fit in that box. As someone that got diagnosed with bipolar disorder at 17, I don't fit in that box, right? And so it just kept happening. Like all these things kept happening that kept making me feel more and more unlovable in this world. So then I found the internet. I found party nights first, but then I ended up finding the internet, and I was catfishing. I was pretending to be someone I'm not, and some white Latina, like blonde, skinny, blonde hair girl, and I had degrees and a husband. I don't know. It got weird. I started making up because when you're gonna make up stories, you're just gonna. I grew up on soap operas, on novelas. Like I made it as dramatic as possible, but I was on these forums sharing my work and I've always been a good writer. It's literally what I was born to do. And I grew up reading everything I could get my hands on. So I learned to read from other writers. I learned to write from other writers, from Nikki Giovanni, Maya Angelou, Sandra Cisneros. Black women were my first teachers. And so I was on these forums and I was getting my poetry was praised, but I was telling myself that it was only being praised because a conventionally attractive woman was sharing the work. And I thought that if people knew who I was, they wouldn't care to read. Nobody wanted that. So while on those forums, somebody found my real MySpace. It was whatever. It was a big drama. Yeah. But through that process, I found the Poetry Lounge. And then I literally stumbled into DPL on purpose, but on accident. Like I decided to go there, but I never knew.
Isn't that how it always happens? You'd be like, it was kind of by accident, but I feel like that's when things are aligning. Like, it was meant for you to be there.
The first night I went was some like reunion, and Maida, Bo, Georgia, me.
Maida, once still part of our community, I shall say. But Maida, yes. Oh.
She was on stage, and I had seen her on YouTube and Deaf Poetry Jam.
Shout out to Maida.
Yes, Maida del Valle, like one of the first women that I ever saw that I was just like, this is amazing. I'll let
we got some questions coming in.
But yeah, so then I started going to the Poetry Lunch, but I remember that I was so afraid of myself. I was I would get up and read every week, but it was like in a fog. Like I didn't even know. And my father passed away right around the time that I had to come to DPL.
Yeah.
Like after the first year. So then I was crying I was crying on stage. I was reading all these like I was surviving 1 week at a time. You know, like just Tuesday to Tuesday. And I hated everything else about my life, but every Tuesday night I got to be me.
Yes.
And then whatever, and I became part of the community. And then I remember finally I looked around and I was just like, if these people love me and I go home to pretend to be somebody else, I'm saying I'm not worthy of their love, and I don't want to not be worthy of their love. So I took my ass to therapy.
Say it again.
I took my ass to therapy, and for like a whole year I was going to therapy, sometimes even twice a week. And then all that time I had been trying to slam, and I wouldn't make it through. It wouldn't happen. And guess what? The year after I was a year in therapy was when I made the team. I'm not saying they both correlated, but I'm saying they did.
But I'm saying
I wish I would have had one more year of therapy under my belt when I was on the team, because I was still so scared of everything.
Yeah.
Because that team, I cried the whole team.
Right. You know, people often say poetry is like this a form of therapy, but it's definitely not a substitute for it.
No.
So, you know, if you have poetry out there as a source to release things, definitely still know that therapy is there. You can call on it.
And also, if I know therapy also isn't accessible to all of us, right? It's expensive, but you can always check to see if your churches have access to things, if community programs have access to counselors.
Absolutely.
Because some training is better. Talking to somebody with some training is better than somebody with no training. You know, and these are all places too that give you help and help you, like a good pastor or a good priest, which are not always all of them, but a good one can help. You know, like I remember as a teenager, I had a priest tell me I used to carry so much guilt of my dad's alcoholism, and he was like, "Yesika, you can't save it. You're not God."
Right.
And to have a priest tell me that,
wow,
where he was just like, all love wants to do is be with the beloved, so you just exist.
Wow.
And you're loved. And I was just like,
you got me thinking about my pastor who was an adulterer and all these other things, but saved my life.
You know,
come on. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to actually take a question from our viewers. Thank y'all so much for being here. Also, this is going to be uploaded later, so if you have to check out early, do not do that unless you have to. But if you have to check out early, or if somebody is missing it, we're going to upload it later. But thank y'all for being here. We're talking a lot about insecurities. Bumps in the road to get you there. And, you know, we're a youth org. Street Poets is primarily, we're a youth organization. We work with lots of youth. I think anybody who works with youth now on a regular basis, we recognize that our youth are dealing with sadness, a lot of insecurities, but definitely during this time, during the pandemic, they're dealing with not feeling worthy enough or being capable of success, a lot of them. You know, it's almost like this feeling of, what's out there for me, and it's really sad to see that, especially when we think of ourselves as young people dealing with those. So your story is a non-traditional one, you know. We're talking about, you know, you dropped out in high school, talking about just, you know, this, you always knew you was a great writer, but kind of running from yourself in a lot of ways. What else? Finding success online. That's not that, at least on your time, that wasn't everybody's story. So how do you define worthiness or success now? How has it changed for you? Like if there was a young person or young people sitting right here, what would you tell them about worthiness and success?
Yeah, I feel like for a long time, I come from the Poetry Lounge, the community I come from is home of legends, right? And so, and some of y'all have been killing, you yourself included, have been killing it for like a long time. So I was there like, I'm never, what? You know, like, I'm here to be like the supporting stuff. Like, but that's what you tell yourself.
I was looking at y'all when I I felt like I was starting all over, but go ahead.
But I was just like, you know, like, but that's what you tell yourself, right? Where you're like, man, Teresa, like, Teresa's been on final stages. Alyesha's been on final stages.
You compare,
Carrie, like, I haven't, like, they do college shows at the time I wasn't doing that, right? Although today is 9 years for my first college gig ever.
Hey, 9 years for the first college gig ever. College years are fun. You feel like
at Occidental College. They're great.
Occidental.
Yeah, I mean, they pay the bill, you know?
Was it in a cafeteria?
No.
Okay, no offense, Occidental. You're awesome. I think I was in a cafeteria.
You know what? It might have been a cafeteria. Like, it was a strange room. But,
okay.
But shout out for like betting on a girl back then. I don't even know what they paid. I don't even know what they paid me. I don't know, but I remember it was my first show.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But Worthiness, right? I'm feeling everything. I think now, and I guess I'm saying this as a privileged person that has checked off a lot of things that people would want to check off in their careers. But my success is two-sided, right? One is I'm able to tell my story. And that alone is you know, like we have access to telling our stories because we have the internet, we have camera, like we have a whole studio on our phones. We have ways to create with like little to no resources, right? And like I didn't have that as a teenager.
Yeah.
Everything was in my journals, like that would get tucked under my bed and my secret darkest feelings. And I get to live this bright, loud life where like, and it's not about being like on the stage or anything like that, or being like quote unquote like famous or whatever. I'm not famous, but whatever people want to call that, right?
It's questionable because some would say, but go ahead.
But you know what I mean? Like it's not about how many people know me. There we go. It's not about how many people know me. It's the fact that like I can step into a room and tell my story in a way that when I'm done telling my story, like I feel freer, and so do the people in the room with me. And that's success for me. That I have those tools, that I've learned those tools to be able to do that. And then the other two is that I'm able to take care of my family with the money I make off of my poetry. You know, like I don't need a bunch of flashy things. I mean, they're nice, right? But like my mother's retired, and I completely provide for her. And my younger sister. And then I'm able to like help my sister out by getting her for the kids all the stuff that we couldn't get as kids. You know, I have these kids wearing Crocs are expensive, and I have these kids wearing
Crocs expensive?
They're like $40
I was
a
hearing.
pair.
Oh my goodness!
For a 5-year-old that's only gonna wear 5 minutes.
That's wild.
But I bought them Crocs, you know, and then like buying them like they're wearing Nikes to like elementary
family
school.
trips,
you know, and like we do local family trips, like. They don't know it's a trip on a budget, but it's like a trip that I would have never been able to give them when I worked at CVS, when I was making minimum wage. And that's the part where I could be like, don't worry about it, Mom. I bought her a Dyson. And like,
I read that story. It was beautiful.
So expensive. A Dyson is almost like the price of a laptop. Then like, I bought her a Dyson because she's like older and has arthritis, and I don't want her carrying around heavy things.
Yeah.
And so the fact that I'm not going to bed anymore feeling like I can't provide for my family, feeling frustrated, feeling like if my mom gets sick tomorrow, what are we going to do? Like the fact that fear isn't over our head is such a huge privilege.
Yeah.
And it's a level of success. It's like, it's grown-up success, you know?
Oh my God.
And so, yeah, but it's I get to feed my family doing what I love. And that's, you know.
What's that? Just look at us.
Look at us. What do you call that? Or the one that from Insecure? Gross. We call that gross.
Let's take some questions. Lisa said, if you had to write a poem right now, what would it be about?
I think, okay, if I had to write a poem right now, and it is a poem, so long story short, my right leg has never had luck. I got hit by a car when I was 18, and so then I've had a pinched nerve since I was 18. Then in 2017, I got a leg infection after we came back from Kentucky. That's where I got the infection at. We're at
what?
Yeah, because we came back and a week later I was in the hospital. Remember?
Oh wow!
I think it was when we went down to the river. I think something bit me.
That's what rivers, you know. Shout out to our book, The River.
I will still go there. I will still go again. But either way, I have a disability that's grown throughout the years.
Yeah.
And I think, and I've also am older. I'm 37, and that's still very young. But your knees at 37 will argue with you and tell you otherwise. So I've just been wanting to write something about being disabled and kind of, I've written love poems to my body throughout all the different stages of my life, and I've been resisting writing a love poem now that I've settled into my disability.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's something that I'm very scared of,
Hmm.
but I know I need to.
Right.
So if you have, whenever you hear me, I actually started writing it and I was going to read it today, and then I'm having like not the best body day, and I was just like, you know what, I'm not going to fall apart at the office, so I didn't bring it, but I would finish that poem.
For sure. Okay. All right. Cool. Also, y'all, you get to hear poetry from Yesika at the end of this interview. So please stick around, because you're not just going to hear the interview, even though I think it's going great, but you're also going to get to hear some lovely, lovely poems and find out why I'm such a fan of Yesika. Let's take another question, and then I'll ask you a few more, and then before we know it, we'll get into the poem. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you need anything? We good?
No, I got my water.
All right.
I got
all right.
you.
I think this is your first time here.
This is my first time here, and this
Yeah.
is so beautiful. This is an altar.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous, and it's just,
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Another question from DJ Ladybug Pooh. What is the best advice you have received?
Oh, the best advice I've received. It's been different advice. I think the best, I know I've gotten good advice when I want to fight the advice first.
Oh,
You know?
yes. Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it wasn't, and you know what? The best advice, it wasn't advice. It was, I got called out. And you were in the room when that happened. I was on stage doing a poem, and then our coach was just like,
it's always back to she, huh?
why? No, it wasn't she.
Oh, okay.
He's like, why are you apologizing? You sound like you're always apologizing. And then I started sobbing on stage.
I would have sobbed too. I remember this.
And then I was just like, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And then I was in the bathroom and I was mad. I was like, I don't apologize. Like my poems and so like, ugh. But literally after that was when I pivoted in my performances, because I would catch myself doing that whine kind of in my voice, that shake like that. But it was like it wasn't like a vulnerability. It was like I'm sorry, I'm making you hear this poem about me being fat.
Yep.
You know, and then the person was Jamon Johnson. I'm just being extra about it because he's shout out to him. But yeah, he told me, he's like, you sound like you're apologizing. Why are you always apologizing? And that was like one of the most pivoting like moments and stuff. And it was you know, and I don't think I heard it right then. And I think the whole season went by, and then you know, we didn't win, and I had to go home and sit with it.
We did not win. We were just talking about that in the car.
It was hard, you know.
It was tough.
It was hard. But then the last 2 times I was on a team, we got coached to final stage. So you know, we made up for it.
Yep. I'm good with that. They still upset we ain't win. I'm fine. We gotta talk about that too. What do wins and losses even mean? You know, like we made it far.
I mean, you know,
when you work hard and you know you deserve it sometimes, or what does that even mean?
You know what? I will tell you this. Slam competition is tournaments. And in the moment, you've worked the entire summer to get to something.
Yeah.
And you know your poems are bomb. And it's just like the luck of the draw or like whatever. And then I get to your way, you're like, we could have won, right? And then it's just like, but the coulda, woulda, shoulda will always exist.
Yeah, you know, you keep going.
And you know what? I was mad over our last, when we took second. Sometimes I'd be like, we should have won. But then I'm like, but so did the team that won.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not mad at the team that won. You know? If they weren't good people,
nobody's thinking about that right now. Nobody's going, you remember that year that one team almost made it but didn't? They remember in our poems. People remember what you brought, I think, what you showed up with more than, you know, at least as time goes by.
Let me, while we're here, before we move forward, and then just because we're in conversation, I talk about this a lot. I talk about you often in interviews or talks or whatever, because you gave me one of the biggest lessons in poetry when we were getting the poem ready, the Tinder Poem.
Okay.
So I had written this poem pieced together from lines that men messaged me on dating apps, and if any of you, some of you are young, so you shouldn't be on there. But, you know, whatever. The internet, right? Men, like, messaging me, like, really messed up things on the internet. And so I took all these lines, and it was like an erasure poem, right? And then, and this poem had existed since 2013. and I never like it's been published, but it's just been sitting there. And then I brought it to the team, and I was just like, I think we could do something really cool with this. So then I wrote.
Mhm.
So then we wrote more into it so that the teammates could be like we could make it a group piece. And then I also wrote this other part where I'm talking and narrating like my story of like why, like how
Such
I go
a
on
powerful
dating.
poem. Oh my gosh, yeah.
How I go on dating apps and I'm looking for these things. So then here's this poem. Like there's like I'm tired of feeling like the people who I want to love me are the ones that hate me the most, which is men, right? Like and calling out what this violence, this misogyny on the internet is, digital sexual harassment, right? And so at the time, my other teammates all identified as men, and so we played with that where they were standing behind me and they were saying the lines as I was performing the singular poem. And so then at some point we were like, let's have them turn around. And then Matt and Alyesha were both coaching us, and Matt was just like, but are people going to be able to hear them? And this is when Alyesha said this, and this has sat with me forever. She said, the women in the audience don't need to hear them. We all know what they're saying.
Absolutely.
And that was like, that changed so much about like how I write and what I do, because I'm like, oh, sometimes you have to be very aware of who you're making the choices for, you know, and in that moment, like, and that was a level of integrity too, that it taught me like that I need to be aware of in poetry too.
Yes.
Where I'm just like, I don't always accomplish something and I'm traumatizing everybody in the room, you know, but if you put in a line or two and the person that needs to hear that line or two hears it, that's all you need to do.
Yes.
And everything is effective. The poem is online. If y'all,
what's it called again?
I forgot what we named it.
We'll tell y'all. We'll write it in the comments when we post this. We'll remind you. But it's a powerful poem. I do recommend if you're younger. You know, we'll talk about that. As you know, it's a good poem. It's a very necessary poem.
It was really and we almost won the entire thing with it.
We almost won.
Yeah,
it's fine. We'll count the almost wins. They all count. I'll take a lesson in life.
That poem was the highest scored poem of the entire night, and at the time being the only woman on the team and being coached, the only team that had a woman coach. No, wait.
No,
I think the winning team had a woman coach too.
I think so.
But I think like getting to that, like that doesn't happen all the time also, right?
Right.
But you know, it was just really, that's what it was. The whole bout, no woman had taken center stage.
Yeah.
They were like always part of like these other poems. So it was just like, sometimes it's not about winning, but it's about the message that you leave. And we left with the best message every time we've been on a team.
That's what I've been waiting to hear from all of y'all. Every year, at least twice a year, they bring up how we didn't win, and I'm like, but y'all, let's count the wins within the moment. I'm like, I'm so extra. Let's talk about your 3 babies. Let's pivot real quick.
Yes, I was like, my 3 babies.
Yes. Speaking of non-traditional, the other thing we were talking about, you have 3 babies, your 3 books, Corazón, Tesoro, and Hermosa. Tell us about your children, their growth, because I know sometimes you still do signings for even the first baby. And then you have chapbooks too. My gosh. So tell us about your children, their growth. Do you have a favorite? And as far as your books and your collections, what's next?
Yes. So, okay. I think it's important for folks to know this. I did 3 chapbooks before I ever did a book, right? And the 3 chapbooks are self-published, and chapbooks, if you don't know that, they're these thinner books. You can get them printed at any place that there's printing, and they're usually stapled, right? And so I have the Luna poems, I have Vogue, and then I have Sentimental, whatever, that has the rest of its name. It's a curse word, but whatever. And so those were books that I did on my own. The Luna poems I published in July 2013. She's gonna turn 10 next year, and I printed 100 copies, and it took me years to sell the 100 copies.
Wow.
And because I wasn't booking shows or anything like that.
How fast do you book? I mean, how fast do you sell a couple 100 copies now?
I sell a couple 100 at a show. Like if I do a show, so then the Luna poems took forever to sell. Then I quit my job at CBS in October 2016, and math is not my strong suit. So then I was just like, wait, I ran out of money. So then I did my chapbooks.
Mhm.
Like I was doing my chapbooks, and then I sold over 1,000 of each. And the average poetry book sells about 1,000 copies.
Mhm.
Just in life. Like that
Right.
doesn't is not a knock to anybody, but that's just the average.
Mhm.
So I was on par with what average is. And
Right.
then I had been offered by a publisher and it didn't feel right. And then my current publisher came and offered to publish me. And at the time they had a roster of people that
Yes.
I really respect and my friends. And I was just like, well, yeah, like this makes sense, right?
Right.
And I remember Tanya had just released her book.
Yes.
And Tanya's book made me feel like I could do a book.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Mhm.
Like, and so then Corazón, I wouldn't change anything about Corazón. Like, yeah, I would, like every writer would change something.
Mhm.
But I know that I feel like Corazón exactly represents who I was
Mhm.
in 2017, a year exactly after I had left my job.
Yeah.
And it came out a year exactly, like in October 2017.
Yeah.
And it's a bunch of love poems, and it tells the story of a relationship. And it kind of like ultimately like coming back to myself and realizing that there's an abundance of love everywhere that I am. And then because I am, so the word prolific means someone that generates a lot of art, right? I'm a prolific writer. I used to be. I was constantly writing. You remember I was like a maniac. And so I had so much stuff. And so I told my publisher, I'm ready for another book.
Yeah.
So if you're ready. And so then we did Tesoro. And then I was just like, I got one more left. I got one more because it was specifically 2 poems. I'm going to read one of them today that I was just like, they need to be like, we got it. Let's make it a trilogy. I do things in 3s. And so we did the trilogy. And my favorite, it depends on the day that you ask me, but I know my middle child, Tesoro, is the most difficult book. Mm-hmm. So I know that if somebody comes up to me with a copy of Tesoro and they tell me this is my favorite, I know that we connect in a different way than the other 2 books. Yes. Because Tesoro talks a lot about like the dark parts of my family.
I was gonna say that's the one it deals more with. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like if you're able to like sit with that, then that means we connect on a lot of the trauma that we had to overcome. But also like that was my most ambitious book. I did some things really right. I did something I would change some things, but I feel that they all stand true to who I was at the time and Tesoro was at the time where I had all the success I didn't know what to do with. And I was very conflicted and felt very alone, and it's reflected in the book. So I think I feel a fondness to it because I know that the Yesika that wrote that book needs the extra love. So yeah.
I can't hear the word Corazón or mango without thinking about you. It's like your imprint is just everywhere. It's perfect. It's a good thing.
I can't see coconut oil without thinking about you.
Coconut oil, all of my hair, skin. That's my jam. That's my thing. Do you ever miss I don't even know if I could call it this, but for lack of much better phrases, do you ever miss the simple days? Do you ever miss before?
Yes. My creativity does. Because so I'm working on my 4th book, which is tentatively titled Mentirosa, and it's a collection of essays, not poetry. Okay. And so I have very complicated feelings because I have a column, so that I've been doing that, right? And so I had a column. I wrote a column for a year, and so this collection is in that same vein of the column, which is like stories. A lot of the stories I've been telling in poetry, but like with more detail, more facts, like where you could actually pull in more things. Yeah. But if you know me as a writer, my poems are thimbles, and an essay is 10 pages, and I'm just like, what? Like an essay is a book for me, and it's been really hard. But to say like, in a sense, it's reminding me of the simpler days of when like I was able to create poetry without the responsibility of having thousands of people that are going to look at it. I used to be more free with the stories I would tell and more playful with how I would structure my, like with form, with imagery, with words. Yeah. And I feel like I lost some of that playfulness. And I mean, it shows up in other areas of my life now. I think like I've expanded my creativity too. but it's really weird to have the thing that used to keep you alive, that you used to use to survive, to become the thing that you get stressed about because you got to turn it in.
Oh my gosh, tell me about it.
Like, like I get commissioned to write really dope things for dope projects, but sometimes the stress of wanting to impress the companies that they bring you back takes your joy out of the creativity sometimes, where you constantly got to keep checking yourself to get back in it and be like, it doesn't matter, just show up as you. They know that's what they want you.
Yes.
But then you're like, no, but this is going to be on Spotify and I'm going to do this and this and that. And I'm like, nah, girl, just
do you.
Just do you.
And that's what you've been doing this whole time. I feel like you have shown up as yourself. I mean, I know you have the story you shared in the beginning about, what's the word for it?
Catfishing.
Catfishing. But I love how even in that you show up and say, this is what I've done. I'm putting it all out there. This is who I am. Like the way you just show up raw as yourself, even if you're like, look, somebody had to call me out for this one day, but you still show up in that honesty. And that's so admirable. Like that's just, thank you. Thank you for showing up that way. If it's okay, I'm gonna ask you one more question, and I want to give you the option of we can take another question from the audience now, or you can take some in between your set. It's up to you.
Okay, we'll do now.
Okay, let's
my
do that.
Thing is,
so get y'all questions in.
You don't wear glasses, but sometimes when glasses get hazy, and so then like I'm like, what do you? Maybe I need a new. Okay, how do you find a publisher and editor? Okay. If you want me to, do you want me to?
Yes. Okay. Shout out to George.
So there's different ways. Right now, with my fourth book, I'm going the traditional way, where I want to be as transparent as possible, and also say that I'm very privileged in the sense where once you have a large following, y'all, everybody says yes to you, even though your work isn't, even though if it's not good or not, people will just be like,
yeah,
okay, let's publish you, right? So for me, it's finding people that want to work with me because they believe in my work and they believe in my community.
They're not trying to take advantage of who you are. And
yeah. They're not just trying to benefit off of the what And so I have these. I'm signed with Folio Agency, and these I have 2 literary agents, and they kept emailing me. I have a rule: if you come back and you knock 3 times, then I gotta let you at least pick something or whatever.
Sure.
And so I ignored them, and they came back around, and So I'm like, oh, that means they're here for this. So I have my agents, and what I'm doing with them is I'm creating a book proposal, which means you write about what usually is going to be a third of the book to give publishers a feeling of what it is. Then you do the proposal where you talk about your goal with the book, who the intended audience is, you add the material of the book, and then kind of it's like a resume kind of thing, like your social media numbers, or this is the most annoying thing, influential people you might know that will endorse your book. It's also whatever. So then they take this, and then you could go to auction where you allow different publishers to offer you an advance, and then you choose whoever gives you the best deal that you think possible. So that's one way that you can go. But then there's independent publishers, which is Not a Cult My Publisher. There's Budding Poetry is an independent publisher. You have World Sage Press, which is local to LA. And so you have all these other folks that are an individual or individuals that started their own company and don't belong to this higher, to the top 5 things. And then for them, they all have their different protocols. Some have open submissions year round. Some have
they'll post it right online.
Yeah, some have a contest once a year, and some will approach you at a venue, and
that's how I get.
And we'll be like, "You're dope. I'm smart, so I want to publish you." And just because somebody wants to publish you doesn't mean that it's the best fit. It's always good to see everything, and it's always good to recalibrate even once you're in the process of something, or afterwards. But so those are the different ways that you could do publish, or you could self-publish. And really quickly, the difference between self-publishing and publishing is just having a publisher. But there's a lot of programs that that will do a publishing thing for you. They still self-publish, but they'll help you. Amazon has some of that stuff, but I know Amazon's not our friend. But that's just the most notable thing to go do. So there's different ways to get your work out there. But my thing is, and I want y'all listening to make this your mantra, I have no interest in climbing the mountain. I'm here to teach the mountain how to kneel. And I say that all the time.
I love that.
I have no interest in climbing. I have no interest in being in academic spaces or these literary spaces, in where like that I have to submit to and apply to in those things, right? That's not my interest. My interest is to get those spaces to become aware not only of me, because when they become aware of me, it's not just me, but it's my entire community, and it's what we've built together. And so when they say, "Hey, Yesika, I want to publish you," it's because they're acknowledging the value of the Latina voice, of women of color, of disabled, of fat people, like everything that all my intersections, right? And then I know that by me going and doing this one thing, it allows people that share different parts of my identity to become a part of it. And then also too is asking questions, and for those of us that are not Black, if they don't have anybody Black on their roster, don't don't because if a venue is anti-Black, a space is anti-Black, it'll only be a matter of time till they become anti everything else too.
Come on.
I've learned.
Y'all taking notes? I hope so. I had a few questions I could have asked you, but you touched on a lot of it. So I'll close as far as my questions go. Then we're going to hear some lovely poetry. I'll finish my questions with this. I once saw you post, or maybe multiple times, that Los Angeles is your home and you can't see yourself living anywhere else. Tell us more about that. Why LA? What's special about this city? I mean, I can list off some reasons, but I'm not from here. So what's special about this city? And why does it you travel a lot now? Why does it always bring you back, no matter how many places you've seen right now, it calls you back? Tell us more about how Los Angeles calls you back home.
Yeah, I mean, being the daughter of my grandparents always puts you in this place of like, where is really my home, right? Because all my life was just like, El Salvador. A video camera shoved in my face, send a message back to our family. Oh, you have too many toys, we're going to send them back to your family. Mm-hmm. Every summer, you're going to go see your grandmother, your tias, your tios, right? Like, and that's been my entire life, pointed to El Salvador. But then also, like, I've lived in the same block my entire life. Mm-hmm. I've lived in Silver Lake, California, hella gentrified, but I've been there before the gentrification. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Silver Lake, Echo Park, right? All of that. And that's been, even my accent becomes more prominent when I start talking about my home. But I've seen the entire country, and many times when I'm like in other cities, I'm like, oh, this feels like a part of LA. Hmm. Oh, this feels like I was in San Antonio. Mm-hmm. I felt like I was maybe like somewhere on the east side. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Like, I went to Philly. I mean, the men were fine in Philly, so I don't know if I can compare it to like whatever, but there's like little pockets where I'm just like, oh, this feels like this part of LA, this feels like that. And also like we're privileged with weather, with like I was just in New York.
Oh my goodness.
And
you had a bubble coat on?
So cold. But New York is so it's so big but so fast for my tender heart, you know, and everybody's like this and there's no trees. And I'm just like, I like this place. I would come and visit here for a long time, but every time I'm coming back to LA and I see the mountains, mm-hmm. and I see our polluted skyline and our murky waters in the ocean, I'm just like, this is home. This is home. But most of us, the people, mm-hmm. like, yeah. I say, I know the city the way that I know heartache. I can taste it before I can give it a name. And it's like I might not pledge an allegiance to this country, but I pledge an allegiance to the people of the city. Yeah. And it's such a beautiful city. And like I was so excited to see you go up on a building in LA.
Because this ain't about me.
No, wait, because I was just like, yes, we got her.
Yeah, we got her. It's definitely my home now, right?
Yeah, because I know you've always been like, I don't know, and then you're on a building and I'm like, at least you can.
I'm respectful of the city, you know, yeah. Like. I haven't even been here for 10 years yet, but this city, especially hearing it, not only witnessing it and being here for so long now, but hearing it through your poetry, through Edwin's poetry, through other poets who have been here, through Janice's poetry. Like I know what it's like to be from a place that's your home and you're like, especially when it's a dope home, even if it's complicated, like I don't want to overstep those boundaries. So I finally feel like I get to say I share this space with y'all. So, you know, like, yeah, I'm glad I'm here. I'm so glad that I got to meet you and connect with you. Yeah. And I love how you show up for LA. I think it's so dope.
Yeah, and also like, and I'll leave it with this. People love to talk so much about the city
Mm-hmm.
because of the Hollywood, like Hollywood. But people don't understand that Hollywood is it's like it's not even a real place.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go to Hollywood Boulevard, it ain't what you think it is. But the that energy, right? Like the networking and the rubbing elbows with like
Mm-hmm.
the wealthy famous folks, right? Like that's cool. I've been to those events. Nobody eats. Um, Everybody's just trying to take pictures and go home. So like right after that group picture, you saw everybody went home. And like so that's not my community. That's not what I know. What I know is like going to the club and coming out and getting the hot dogs or like on Dodger opening day and seeing everybody out with their families and
Mm-hmm.
like and all of that or when Nipsey was left us, right? It was one of the few times that I've seen the city not only mourn out loud, but like celebrate out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like that was one of the few times that I could show other people outside of the city what the LA I know is.
Mm-hmm.
Like the LA I know is when the Lakers won and the lady was in the bubble running around outside in the streets. I was like, yeah, that's my city. That's
Yeah.
like the hood and the glamour all
Mm-hmm.
at once.
Yes.
And just like the vibrancy of our people and not many shows get it right, but I feel like Insecure did a good job of making
Hmm.
LA. I just rewatched the entire show.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna do the same.
Yeah, I already missed it, so then like I had missed it, so I'm like I'm gonna go back and see all of it. But I was just like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this feels so
Yeah.
like the portrait, like the portrait lounge. I could how everybody in a different neighborhood has a vibe, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when the elders from Lamert Park would come to DPL, like I knew I could feel their energy and like, oh yeah, you're from World Stage, or
Yeah.
like it's just LA has so many pockets and so many beautiful, vibrant folks that like anywhere I go, it's just beautiful and there's so much like I was just watching that like South Central used to be the jazz capital of the West Coast. Yeah, I'll find the video and I'll send it to you.
Wow, I learned something new every day.
I'll find
It's
the video.
beautiful.
I'll find the video and I'll
Yes,
send it to you.
thank you.
But and so those are things that I learned. I'm like, there's so much culture here that we don't get told the culture of the city, but if we go looking for it, we can find it.
Yes. Ah.
Yeah.
But shout out to Los Angeles, beautiful
Yes.
city. I'm learning more. I'm learning in the moment. Shout out to you, Yesika.
Shout
Are
out
you
to you.
ready?
I'm ready.
I am hyped, y'all. You have no idea. I don't wanna do too much, but I'm a big fan over here. I'm playing it cool. I already introduced. Without further ado, where you are. Again, we can't hear your applause, but energy is felt. Please give it up. A lot of love for Yesika Salgado.
Thank you. And then can you do me a favor and let me know when I have 5 minutes left so that I don't know what happened. Once you start reading, you go into like a trance. So I'm gonna be reading from my award-winning book from Hermosa, which was the last book I released in 2019. And a little quick note about this book was I almost thought it wasn't gonna get done. I couldn't I had a deadline and I kept pushing it back and I kept pushing it back. And then a friend of mine who's also a writer, her name is Gabby Rivera, and she said, I love your other books, but I haven't seen the current Yesika in your books. I don't have them now, but I usually have my long acrylic nails, right? And a lot of jewelry on. I didn't put on jewelry because I don't have my nails, so I just felt like they all go together. But she's like, I haven't seen this Yessie. And then I decided to be selfish and just put all the poems that I like in this book. And so, yeah. So the first one I'm going to read is called Memorization. I can walk down my block with my eyes closed. I could draw it for you on a napkin if you ask. There's the building that looks like a castle. Then the two identical blue apartments. Then there's a white one where Chelly, my best friend, lives. Blanca's house with all of its kids. If you turn at the front gate of the next house, walk past the first door, we don't talk to whoever lives there. Then there's Don Pablo's house. Then there's Anna's with her loud abuela. Down 5 steps, past the basement with graffiti. past the mailbox that does not hold my terrible report card, thank God, between the lemon trees, say hi, papi. Papa's hands and newspaper sitting in the shade. Mommy's face at the kitchen window. You kiss her cheek, peek into the bedroom. Jenny reading Harry Potter on the top bunk bed. Julie watching TV from the bottom. The living room clean and quiet. A square of sun on the floor. Selena singing about her dreams. Mommy yells at me for dragging jacarandas into the house. Look at my shoes. There, crushed into the soul, is a garden I brought home. So jacarandas are what's on the cover of the book. Also, if you notice, it's Laker colors, purple and yellow. Shout out to the Lakers, although this year, whatever, we got a championship last year, but the jacarandas are all over LA. They're the big purple trees that we see. They were brought here when the city was being planned out to beautify the city, long before any of us were born. And on my street, they tend, if they don't get cut, they tend to canopy the entire street. So in the summer when they bloom, my whole block is purple, and like the flowers fall everywhere, and it's really inconvenient to people that park their cars there, or even if you're walking, it's messy. It gets on your shoes, it gets on your car. But isn't that love, right? Like, it's everything. I'm telling you, everything leads back to love. But yeah, so I'm Salvadoran, and in El Salvador we have a word called bayunca, and basically it's a word that you will hear from your mother when you're like misbehaving or like doing something that she finds embarrassing, or like if you won't greet people. It's more of like, don't be silly, don't be a fool kind of thing. I had a tia that would, and so this poem is called Bayunca. I had a tia that would sometimes drink a beer and play poker at parties, and the other mujeres would murmur, beer is a man's drink, milk and coffee is for the mothers. They drink their cafecito with a table at a table while talking about fulana de tal or aquella bayunca que se cree mucho. And I would sit as closely as I could and listen to the gossip, memorizing the names of all the scandalous relatives. The Theo with kids from a secret woman, the cousin who left to Mexico because he got in trouble here, the loca that is off acting like a man again. Those were my favorite stories. Women doing what women don't do. I imagined all the beer I drink when I got older. I'd chug it down like a cold soda and burp loudly on purpose. I'd cackle big and booming, wouldn't care what the mujeres say. Ay, esa niña es tremenda. But instead, I'll lift another beer and say, así es, tía. Salud. I don't like beer, but I still will get one. I'm an adult, so I can get one. And I'll get one like around my relatives just to scandalize them. Okay, so this poem is called Papi in Five Parts. Whew, it's a sometimes as a poet you have poems that live in you for many years before they let you write them, right? Like you have the idea of them, the desire to write them, and then they'll just be like, not yet. This It's not gonna happen. And you try to write them and it's just you don't get exactly to where you want to get to. And so that was this poem, and then it just came out of me complete one day. Like, just fell out. I was sobbing so hard. I thought I was gonna like scare my neighbors. And then I went to the Poetry Lounge. I read it on stage, and I realized that I wasn't ready to share it with people. And I put it away and didn't share it for like a long time. When I went looking for it I think, I don't know if I was going to put it in a book or what I was going to do with it, but I went to go look for it to use it for something. And I couldn't find it. I checked everywhere where I store my work. I even went down my old email. Like, I went all the way to 2013 and couldn't find it. And I was just like, what, did I delete it? What happened? And I mentioned this to my friend Vanessa Ayala. And when I wrote this book and when I shared it at DPL, she and I weren't friends yet. She was just someone that used to frequent the venue. And she's like, I don't know what moved me that day, but I recorded you reading the poem. So the one time I read it, this person that wasn't my friend yet in the audience got the inkling to record it, saved it for like 2 years, and then gave it to me when we were friends. And I was able to rewrite it off of the sound of my voice. And it was proof to me that sometimes your own poems will come back and save you. Sometimes you give yourself this task of writing these stories that you think are going to like move the world or change someone's life or whatever, but the life that you're changing is your own. And that's what this poem taught me. And I always share that story before this for anybody that needs to hear that, and also to remind myself what this poem has done for me multiple times. And it's called Bobby in 5 parts. The first one is a quiet Sunday afternoon. You find yourself holding his hand so often there is no need to tell him I love him. At dinner, I prefer to eat from his plate instead of mine, and he never stops me. It's tender, so tender. I pretend to fall asleep with my head on his chest just to hear him breathing, as if I were inside of him, as if I were a vital organ, as if this were the reason I was made. He often calls me his heart, and I never doubted. I know the second one has come home by the slam of the door. It is 3 a.m. and every light is on. His music is loud and angry like him. And when I ask him what's the matter, beg him to go to bed, he answers and sounds like a hand slapped to a face or a body slammed to a wall or glass broken to a cheek. And I try not to cry because my tears are like blood to a shark. And he is a shark in the deepest part of the night. My name is caught in his jaws. There is so much yelling. I wonder why the police haven't been called. So much anger. I fear the sun won't rise in time to save either one of us. The third one is full of jokes that sound like insults. His humor is cheap and easy like that vodka he likes. The fourth one never remembers how much he's hurt me. When we bump into each other in the kitchen the next morning, he won't look me in the eyes. His apologies come as a hurried kiss to a forehead, as a mumbled I love you before he rushes off to work. I resent him, sometimes even hate him. It is so difficult to love him, but if I don't, who else will? Who else will forgive him? Who else will save him? Who else will make him want to change? The fifth one, I wish for every single day of my life, and every blown out birthday candle. Every time I knelt in a church pew, I begged God to send him to me soon. And when he finally did, when God finally gave me a sober father, he was so brittle, so broken, so apologetic, so willing to make it work. I had no choice but to forget everything that had ever come before him. And when he left me, all I could do was remember the first one. How as a little girl, I would pretend to fall asleep on my father's chest just to hear him breathing, as if I were an appendage of his body, as if I was a vital organ, as if this were the reason I was made, as if he had never become anyone else other than the man that called me his corazón and never let me doubt it. Thank you. Oh, that poem. That poem teaches me so much about integrity as a performer. And like sometimes when we talk about integrity, we talk about the stories that we're telling and like to tell them right and the responsibility of telling them, but we don't talk about the responsibility you have towards yourself and to check in with yourself and to make sure that you're going to be okay after sharing a poem, to make sure that like you can still finish your set. Because there's been times that I've done that, like, you know, you have moments, those moments in the shows where you're like, and I still have 20 minutes on the stage and I want to go cry. I'm a Cancer. I cry like 50 times a day. It can't be on stage though, because then there's like a whole audience and yeah. So there's this poem, The Trick. Today I am not a writer. I am my halted Spanish and insecurities. I am my fingers that know letters but not grammar. My only degree is my library card. I read someone else's words and I shrink. I turn into a speck of envy. I don't know how not to weigh my work against theirs. I can't stop feeling like I'm a cheap magician's trick. If I move too quickly, I'll give myself away. You'll learn. I am only stacking these words together to pull myself out. I don't know how you got here. I wasn't trying to save you. All I have been doing is staying alive. And that's a truth that many writers will not tell you. Like, it's nice to have people read your work, but many times, like, it's funny when schools study my work, and then, like, sometimes I'll get students that will email me or DM me, and they're like, when you said this, did you mean this? I'm like, no, I literally felt like I was dying. And, like, that's what I meant. Like, it wasn't a political commentary. It wasn't like anything. Like, literally, I wanted to lay down on the floor and not get back up. Like, that's what I was talking about. Or I was literally just talking about a fruit. Like, it wasn't, I really like mangoes, y'all. I really like mango. And, like, when I go home, I'm gonna eat. I have a mango waiting for me, and it's not a metaphor. Sometimes it is, but sometimes I'm just writing about all this stuff. Let me see. How do you find a? Okay, somebody already asked that. Okay, no questions. Yeah, I'm gonna read. I love writing love poems. I love romantic love, friendship love, homegirl love. But my favorite thing to write is a heartbreak poem because I grew up on those bookies. I grew up on Juan Gabriel. I grew up on the Delphonics. I grew up on Los Temerarios. I grew up on the Temptations, on Al Green, and, like, I remember being a young girl and my cousin playing "How Do You Mend a Broken Heart," and me being like 12 and, like, sobbing in his house, and, like, nobody had broken my heart yet, but I was ready to cry about a broken heart. And so that's kind of the person that I've always been. Um, and I've recently ended, like, in the last year, I ended, like, a very on and off relationship that stretched out for 9 years with this man. And every time I wrote my books, I thought we had ended and then we would get back together. But we are definitely over. And so then when I was writing this book, I was able to talk about heartbreak and moving on from someone in a different way than I ever had before. And so I'm going to read a couple of poems like that because you don't always owe your exes grace, but when you find it in yourself to give it to them, there's a different piece for you than you'll ever, whatever. Here come the poems. um, Let me see. You know what? No, hold on. We'll get to it right now. But I'm gonna read something else first. Bloodright. I used to sell knives door to door. Remember Cutco knives? It was an MLM. I was in a pyramid scheme, y'all. But I did it for a little bit. I worked at a parking garage booth. I was a salesperson in a paper goods store. I developed 30-minute film, and I called folks about refinancing their homes. I even nannied a pair of twins and got fired for calling the party line. I became the head cashier at another drugstore. I would take the bus to each job, all of them out west in Santa Monica or Palisades or Westwood. I used to commute about 3 to 4 hours every day. I know this city the way I know heartache. I could taste it before I can give it words. I mourned my father on the 201, on the 704. I got my test results about my infertility on the 302. I wrote the first poem in my first book on the 201. I broke up with plenty of boyfriends over the phone at bus stops, made my way to the beach, contemplated walking out to the water, but I always came back on the last bus. I counted the purple trees on my block. I kissed my mother's cheek goodnight. Gentrification tried to tell me that what once loved me can no longer love me back. But I laughed. You can't take what's already in my blood. I say that poem whenever I'm in white rooms, in gentrified rooms. And then they're always just like, is she talking about me? Yes. Look, Ted, go back to the Midwest and film your TikToks there. No, I'm kidding. Sorry. I'm comfortable once I started making jokes like that. So thank you for having me. Okay, boomerang. Anyone who's dealing with a heartbreak, um, when you come checking on me, no, I haven't fallen into the fire. I picked myself up and said, I could do it without him. When I heard you had a new girlfriend, I didn't imagine her body and I didn't wish my fat one away. Instead, I worked, planned, opened a savings account. I wrote, I smoked on cold nights. drank on good nights. I cut off 12 inches of my hair. I took pictures. I booked a cruise, flew to San Francisco, laid in bed with white sheets, called men I had stopped calling when I loved you. I bought my jewelry, took myself to dinner, the movies alone, a bar alone. I went to concerts with friends, stood close to the stage, sang with my face to the sky, my skin as soft as you left it. When you come checking on me, when your palms itch at the sound of my name, know that I haven't fallen into the fire. Instead, I became it. A different ending. Let's say it worked. You became the boyfriend that then became a husband, and I had the babies and named them after planets. We built a house out of straw. You kept your bottle, and I kept everything else. We tied our relationship out in the yard with our parents, two angry dogs that bark day and night. You still hold me like I can break, and I still cry every night we lay in bed. But it is love, you and I. We are a mess, you and I. Let's say it worked. We got the life that I planned for us. You work all day and I don't write anymore. I don't travel. I raise the kids. I keep my anger. You keep your drinking. The dogs bark so loud I can't hear you. The dogs bark so loud we stop kissing. The dogs bark so loud you start looking like my father and I leave just like your mother. Let's say it worked. We kept each other and along the way ruined everything else. I think it's okay. If I never forget you, if you're forever a puncture in my lungs, if I go around wheezing your name like a dusty accordion, I think it's okay. I can survive like this. Someone will ask you about my greatest love, and I'll squeeze out a song. I'll tell you, I don't know what became of you, but I remember your hands on my skin, and that is enough. Together, we learn that love is in peace. I let you go. I can live like this. Woo! Thank you. And then I'm going to do my last poem. This poem is called Compilation, and I tend to end all of my sets with it. I wrote it in some point, 2016, I think. And it was because someone told me that I had to stop writing. They're like, okay, I get it. You're Latina and you're fat. Like, you need to write about other things. And I was just like, shut up. And so I went home and I wrote this poem. And at first it was angry, but then it became a love poem. And so that's what it is. I'm telling you, I never hear advice. Like, whenever I hear it, I get mad and then it makes sense. And then I'm like, oh, I get it. I get what you meant, but like, still, shut up. No. All of my poems are about love. All of my poems are about some boy. All of my poems are about my fat. All of my poems are about my Spanish, my Salvador, my English, my Los Angeles, my pre-gentrification Silver Lake, my Echo Park before the food trucks and yoga parties, my belly swinging by the vegan restaurants, my double chin laughing in overpriced coffee shops, my minimum wage paycheck, my staying too long in too many places, my poor taste in men, my online dating, my hope, my bad dates, my ex boyfriends and their wives who live next door. It's drama. My niece and her laughter, my niece and her little hands pressed against my face, my niece and her little hands wet with the tears on my face, my depression, my secret sadness, my ocean always asking for my body, my anxiety whispering my name at the nape of my neck, my hands, and how they listened and slammed against my body, and how no one ever saw the bruises because no one ever saw my body. All of my poems are about my brown girl body, my everyone has an opinion about this body, my I have to fight to love it every day body, my big, fat, beautiful body, my red lipstick smile, my curly Salvadoran hair, my mommy's hair, and my hair, oh my mommy, my papi, my drunk and angry papi, my papi yelling out my name in the middle of the night, my papi and his belt against my skin, my papi's belt and how it whistled in the air before finding my skin. my long nights counting his snores, my grieving him 10 years before he died, my watching him die, my exhale when he died, my life after he died, my good life after he died, my guilt, my grief. All of my poems are about my parents, my hard-working migrant parents, my hardly any English parents, my Saturday afternoon listening to Juan Gabriel parents, my early Sunday morning mass parents, my sisters and I in our prettiest dresses. Oh, my sisters, my first friends, my first saviors, my first lesson and getting the hell over it, my singing at the top of their lungs until mommy yells, shut the hell up, this isn't a musical, sisters. My no one gets it like you do, sisters. You see, all of my poems are about love. The times that it came in floods, but the years that I forgot what love was. You see, all of my poems are collection plates. I fill and I fill and fill and fill and fill. I have yet to come up empty. I don't think I ever will. Thank God for my poems, for how they always find me, for this heart that believes them, and these hands that always receive them. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Yesika. Y'all, please show a lot of love. Show a lot of love. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yesika, I don't want to end it, but we've come to that point. Everything has to come to some kind of end. How can people find you online or in person soon?
Yes, so Women in Femmes Night, the Poetry Lounge, we're going to be next Tuesday. We're part of the festival. Whatever. We're going to be at Greenway Theater. If you come to my Instagram, Yesika Star, with 2 R's, you can find all my information. I'll be posting a flyer tomorrow. And if you ever come to the Poetry Lounge, even if I'm not there, that's my community. That's my home. You'll probably see Alyesha and Matt there. We're there. Yeah. And and thank you for having me so much. And
Yesika Salgado.com. Yes?
YesikaSalgado.com. Although, like, I don't.
That's very informative. It's a great website.
That's just, people will be like Googling and stuff. I don't know. I'm not good at my website, but it's there, and it has a little box where you could write me a note, and then it comes to me.
So if your questions were not answered right now, you can ask them later. You can ask Yesika later. I don't know. I don't want to bombard you.
No, please. And just put in that email that you're from Street Poet. Like, I saw you at Street Poets, just because I have a manager and she also gets my stuff. But when she knows that it's like a love note from somebody, she just forwards it over to me. And so then, like, I can interact with you.
Perfect. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We are Street Poets Inc. This is Street Poets Presents. We will be back on May 28th with Rudy Francisco, and that will be in person. And we'll put more info about that later. Please stay in tune, streetpoetsinc.com, everywhere on social media, Street Poets Inc., and we will see you soon. Join us Tuesdays at Seeking Peace, by the way. I think that's it, y'all. I don't want to end this, but we have to. Have a great night. Be well. We'll see you again soon.